Grand evening, everyone. It is now Thursday. It is now Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. It is 0 hour and 30 minutes. 0 hours and 30 minutes Central Daylight Time here in the United States. And we have more developments, and the war did not stop with the ceasefire. That's all it was, a ceasefire that barely held, if at all. So, we're going to get into the news here that I've reposted and talk about all of that here tonight. This is initially a live stream recording that is posted to my YouTube channel after it is done. Though right now, as I'm speaking, it is a live stream. So, the war is set to continue in the coming hours. If not, it has as soon as earlier tonight. Though we'll start with this here from the Insider paper, this news. Recently, the largest earthquake, one of the largest earthquakes recently happened in northern Japan. There was a 7.4 earthquake there that triggered a tsunami. I don't know how large it was. I don't think it was that large. It was maybe 10 feet or something. They tend to call everything that results from a earthquake a tsunami still. So that happened. Then we have this here. Kazakhstan, they banned the oil exports from there for 6 months at least. The country has recently been one of the main oil suppliers to the EU. So on top of the current oil crisis and shortage that the EU is facing, now they've just lost one of their main oil suppliers, if not the main one, which was Kazakhstan. Now they're going to have an even larger problem there in the EU, the European Union. Then we had the huge explosion that was at a thermal power plant in Bucharest, Romania. There were lots of reports of that. That was huge and widely covered and talked about then. That was on the same day I last did a live stream on the 20th. So if that was done by Russia, it could trigger Article 5. Romania is a NATO country. That's how an Article 5 situation could develop from that. I don't think it was Ukraine that did that. It might have been Russia. Do not know much about that there. Besides, that happened, and that's huge. And a thermal power plant exploding there, that provides power, obviously, to that region called Bucharest there in Romania. Then we have this here. Iranian TV said the war will return within hours, as I just said, and it definitely is returning, continuing. It's not so much returning. I don't even know if return is the right word for it. The war did not end. There was no peace deal. It was a simple ceasefire that barely held, if at all. So the war will continue within hours, if not already. Earlier, there could have been U.S. missile launches from Kuwait towards Iran. That's what I saw earlier. Then we have this here. I worked on this with Grok, the XAI. So on April 21st, President Trump, yes, he came out and then he said, "Oh, I'm extending the ceasefire." It was a one-sided nonsense thing that he did and didn't take questions and went back into the White House. So he did that at apparently Pakistan's request. The U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports stay in place. Iran rejects the extension, calls the blockade an act of war, and warns of military response, which, yes, a naval blockade, nothing going in or out of Iran is an act of war. That's one of the most direct act of wars, is a naval blockade outside a country or any region, really. Then Trump has repeatedly threatened to bomb Iran's power plants, bridges, water, and other infrastructure if no deal comes. He has not withdrawn those threats. No new bombing has started. The extension is short-lived per some U.S. sources, with military on high alert. Iran and allies could preemptively, if they see existential threats. Iran and allies could strike preemptively if they see existential threats. A full campaign could kill millions and create millions of refugees. That is confirmed and verified by Grok and its knowledge. It agrees with exactly what I've been saying. A full campaign could kill many and create millions of refugees. It could kill potentially millions, I would say, and create millions of refugees by doing that bombing that President Trump is about to order at any moment, within hours. It's looking like by Sunday or Monday. Sunday or Monday is when he's going to order that bombing there that he's been threatening to do. He's going to be doing that in the coming hours. We are days at most away from President Trump ordering that, which will kill many and create millions of refugees after that is done. So shortly after that, around the same time, is going to be a massive humanitarian crisis, and SHTF could follow right around the same time. It's going to cause the global economy, especially economies in the Middle East, they're going to take a massive hit. The global economy is going to nearly collapse from that. The global economy will collapse in time as long as with this naval blockade, this U.S. naval blockade is also going to keep on slamming the global economy, in which the U.S. economy is so weakened and collapsing already. So SHTF is very soon at this current rate. That's the way it is going. It has a lot of effects on the economy. Then we have this down here from the leading report and the White House. The White House has officially proposed now $1.5 trillion defense budget, while the U.S. is about $40 trillion in debt. I think the government is still partially shut down, which that full shutdown takes effect around September. And then above that, the IRGC has threatened to cut the undersea internet cables in the Persian Gulf, which would largely affect Asia and Europe and even the global internet in a big way when they do that, causing a lot of slowdown and things not working at all, especially in that region, Asia, and Europe. A lot will not work at all if they do that somehow. It's not very difficult. There's about 2 places that they would have to cut in order to do that. Then we have this here. This is what I was saying earlier today, hours ago. There were reports of ground-based ballistic missile launches from Kuwait towards Iran, possibly U.S. ATACMS missiles or a similar system. And then at about the same time or shortly after, there were reports of interceptions of drones above eastern Tehran. So the US and Israel seem to have launched ballistic missiles and drones at Iran and their capital, Tehran. The ceasefire seems to have been broken now, and the war seems to be continuing. It's quite a fog of war situation around that, though it seems to be continuing now. We are in week 8 of the total kinetic phase of World War III. I forgot to mention that last Saturday it took effect. That's when it became week 8. Saturday coming up will be week 9 of the total kinetic phase of World War III. Then we have 5 explosions reported in Tehran. This is from the UK report, with each one being less than a minute apart from the other. So more than multiple explosions. Each one of those explosions was less than a minute apart from the other. So that's likely missiles that were all fired at about the exact same time. And that's what those explosions were. One after the other. Missiles going very fast, like Mach 9, something around there. That's how it was less than a minute apart from the other. They were all fired around the same time. Drones don't move that fast. Then we have this here from Clash Report. And it's reported on other news sources. I actually first saw this on Fox. It was very interesting. He is the 37th one to be fired by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Department of War. Secretary of the Navy, John C. Fallon has stepped down effective immediately. That was earlier today. Breaking news. The Secretary of the Navy has stepped down and has been replaced by another. So the U.S. Secretary of the Department of War and President Trump have been firing and removing all of those who don't agree with their plans entirely. They've just been firing and removing them that way and replacing them with the term yes men. So all of those that they are ordering will say yes to everything and their full plans. That's what the U.S. President and the U.S. Secretary of the Department of War is doing right now. We had recently multiple doomsday planes that were up in the air. That was unusual. It was like 3 E-6B doomsday planes and even 2 more presidential doomsday planes, the E-4Bs. I didn't really know there was more than one. There's more than one E-4B. There were 2 of those up in the air all around the outside of Offutt Air Force Base. And then we have further news here. Again, with that ceasefire extension, President Trump was trying to say and think he could just go out there and do. Iran said that they did not ask for an extension of that ceasefire. He just one-sided came out and said that there's a ceasefire extension. Iran did not agree to it. A big thing that President Trump may have been doing with that is he's saying there's a ceasefire, and then he tried to have them attack. So if they didn't say anything and they attacked, he would say they violated the ceasefire. So it's further justification for him to order everything he wants done over there with those military strikes, the bombings, all of that, and more. The advisor to Iran's parliament speaker said Trump's ceasefire extension is a ploy to buy time for a surprise strike. Iran must take the initiative. So that's another thing it was for, to buy time for the surprise strike and catch them totally off guard when it comes to the massive bombing on their critical infrastructure, the water, their power grid, their bridges, all of that, all of what he's been saying. So it takes time to line all of that up and get all that targeting set up perfectly to do it all at the same time. That's what he was doing to buy time. And the other thing was what I just said. The other thing was to say there's a ceasefire and have Iran strike the U.S. so we could say that they violated it. And he's got more justification that reason. So it's to buy time and to say that if they attacked, they violated a ceasefire, giving him further justification. Let's see here. Stand by. I think there's slightly more news here. Iran recently seized 2 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and fired on 3 vessels over there. So they took 2 vessels and they seized 3 of them. No, they seized 2 vessels and they fired on 3 vessels. So a total of 5 vessels were recently taken, and some of them were fired on by Iran. Then earlier, technically earlier yesterday as well, there were aerial refuel planes over a stealth bomber base once again earlier yesterday. It's very likely they'll use stealth bombers to do that bombing that President Trump will soon order. They'll use stealth bombers and I think they're the B-52s if I remember right. And then the last few days we had many U.S. nuclear codes, EAMs, which have been getting more attention. We've had a total of maybe 200 EAMs recently. Some of them were going back to back. So that was, they're usually in preparation for something, um, a very high possibility. They've been very high priority, and there's been well over 100 EAMs within the last 3 days. There was about 100 EAMs in one day. That was the first time in months that that happened. EAMs can be heard on the primary nuclear war frequencies. They're shortwave bands. 8992 and 11175 are the two main bands that the U.S. nuclear forces use for those, where you could hear EAMs, encrypted data, over the horizon radar, those things mainly. The price of fuel is rising right now. It is nearing $100 per barrel again. Price of gold is slowly going up. It's approaching $4,800 per ounce. Though I recommend, once again, learning more about the frequencies, especially those bands. So shortwave, more accurately, learning about shortwave and listening to and paying close attention to those two bands, especially 11175 and 8992. So that's 3 ones and then 75 for one of them, and then 8992 for the other. That one is even more accurate. The 8992 is more active, is the word I'm looking for. 8992 tends to be more active even than 11175. They're around the same. They use both and other bands. I think there's even a third one. I don't remember off the top of my head, in the 4,000 range. So I highly recommend learning about all of that. Uh, Nuclear war survival skills, SHTF survival skills, off-grid survival skills, all of that. And preparing physically, mentally, and spiritually, and gathering as much physical assets together as possible, especially storable foods and freeze-dried foods. Freeze-dried foods, they last about 25 years, especially when they're stored properly. Storable foods last close to that. And then there's other emergency food supplies that can be bought, like months worth of storable food. That's also incredibly useful, and it's not a sponsor, though I highly recommend the Ranger buckets from the Health Ranger store. Those are the best storable food buckets that you could buy, and that lasts for months. And then the storable food itself could last much longer than that. So stocking up on storable food, freeze-dried food, and physical assets is quite the thing to do right now, especially, like I said, preparing physically, mentally, and spiritually. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. like and comment on this video, subscribe to my channel. This video will be posted in a moment to my YouTube channel, which that link is right here on my X page for my YouTube channel. I'll be posting this initially live stream recording right here on X as well. That'll be all for right now. There's going to be quite the escalation coming up and intensification. I'll be back very soon with further news, likely Sunday or Monday. One of those days. It's usually definitely Sunday. At this rate, it'll very likely be Sunday night. So I will be back by Sunday night or Monday. That's all for now. Love, light, and blessings to you all.